to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Before we get started with public comments, I just want to mention that there are new election machines going into effect this year in Suffolk County. And we're going to have live demonstrations of those on March 12th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the community center, over where you go and do early voting. So March 12th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., you'll be able to learn how to use the new voting machines, and you'll be able to ask questions and see them in action so you feel confident when you go to the polls in November. So just wanted to let everybody know that that's happening. Cool. Yeah. And then, oh good, Ben's off. And then we'll open up to public comment. Mr. Gaynor?
Hi there, Mike Gaynor, 8 Cobbetts Lane. I know your time is valuable, so we'll try and work through this really quickly. On topic here is for tonight, the planning board is going to be discussing Sylvester Manor Educational Farm. We're going to have a conversation about that property's use converting from a single-family residence to a concert venue. And then that very same topic is going to be covered next Monday at a town board meeting. So the planning board, so the community is aware that the planning board makes a recommendation to the town board, and then the town board is ostensibly going to vote on that next Monday. The problem with all of this is that none of this information about creating a concert venue on Shelter Island exists inside of any of the documentation that's currently been put in front of the planning board or the town board. And so that's what I'd like to talk about here very quickly. To kind of put this into perspective, I wanted you folks to consider this. There's an event venue on the Shinnecock Nation's property in Southampton, and it's called the Palm Tree Music Festival. And they kicked this off a couple of years ago, and the Palm Tree Music Festival was a couple of hundred people when they first launched it. And this has created a massive problem for the town of Shelter Island. Last year, this thing has grown up. This is a concert venue. Last year, the sold out show, 10,000 people showed up at this venue. And the town of Southampton has no control over this whatsoever because the Shinnecocks are a sovereign nation. They can't do anything. So it's created these massive health, safety, and welfare issues for the town. So the town has to bring the cops, they have to bring emergency services, they have to do all of this. It's a major problem. This is about to happen here on Shelter Island. Unlike all of the other towns on the east end of Long Island that do everything in their power to stop these concert venues from happening, tooth and nail, East Hampton, Southampton, every other town has fought it. Our town has gone ahead and legalized this thing. I'm going to quickly walk through what's happened so everybody inside of the community can pay attention at that planning board meeting tonight, because you're not going to hear one word about this inside of this planning board meeting. It's not been discussed. We've been in front of the planning board since last August. This represents the application. This is the site plan review that they're going up for, right? This thing's the size of a Bible. This is their application from Sylvester Manor Educational Farm for going through site plan review. It's 196 pages long. Would anybody like to guess how many times the word concert, or certainly the word plural, concerts, is mentioned inside of this document? 0, not once. That's sort of a problem. You understand what the site plan review process is, I'm sure, Thomas. And one of the things that the site plan review process talks about specifically is amplified music, right? Are you going to have sound? Is there something that you're going to do inside of this venue that has sound inside of it? I think the planning department, the planning board and the town board should be disclosing this to this community, exactly what's taking place over at Sylvester Manor Educational Farm. This is what Shelby sent out, Shelby sent out to the community notifying them about the town board's meeting. This is what's being told to the community about what the planning board's going to be reviewing tonight and what the town board's going to be reviewing next Monday. Whereas Sylvester Manor Educational Firm has submitted a site plan review application for 80 North Berry Road, talks about the tax map for interior and exterior renovations to the existing 1737 manor house, including removal of the 1960 cabana addition at the north elevation, upgrades to mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire detection, suppression systems, a new AI sanitary system, construction of multiple ADA access points, installation of walkways and landscaping, and the relocation of a generator, diesel fuel pump, heat pump, condenser unit, and transformer. And that's it. That's all. That's what it describes this thing. There's not a mention of a concert venue being created here at all. As you guys know, I hold very strong opinions about Sylvester Manor Educational Farm, right? And it falls neatly under two umbrellas. This started back in February of 2024. I called out the town board. I showed up here. You were here, Meg, as were you, Al. And I called out the town board for allowing this place, that Sylvester Manor Educational Farm, to operate in a legal business in a AA zone for over 16 years now. That, because I exposed that, and everybody in the town knew it, I was the last guy to find out about it. Everybody in the town knew about it except for Mike Gaynor, that these guys have been allowed to avoid the special permit process. Then that created a cascading series of events where they had to go finally and legalize this thing. As of September of last year, they went in front of the zoning board, and the zoning board allowed them to, said that they could have concerts, that somehow that had something to do with this not-for-profit corporation, that that was an appropriate thing that they're supposed to be doing over there. Liz, specifically, there's a real problem with biases inside of this community. I want to point it out. At that meeting, what was it, April of last year, you showed up and your husband showed up at that meeting, and you both spoke in favor of that property. It's an illegal property, it was operating illegally, and you both said that that thing should be allowed to have a concert venue over there. That's a real problem inside of this community. There are tremendous biases towards Sylvester Manor Educational Farm. You stood up, and one of the things that you said is you sit on Sylvester Manor Educational Farm's farm stand committee over there. That's a conflict of interest. You shouldn't be voting on this.
I'm not.
You're not going to be voting?
No,
Perfect.
I'm recused from it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What happened 5 minutes after you spoke is David got up, and David sits on the planning board, and David's going to be opining on this tonight.
He will not.
He will not as well. This is excellent news. So what I believe needs to happen at this point.
I would also like to let you know that they will be discussing their concerts at the planning board, and it will be discussed at the town board, because the original application made by Sylvester Manor, they thought it was just for the house renovations, but we explained to them that they needed the full site plan for the whole change of use. So all of those topics that the ZBA approved are going to be discussed in their site plan review.
It's not included inside of this notification to the town, so none of the community is aware of that. It's not inside of any of the documents. One of the things that Shelby's document says is that you can get a hold of the application, as I did, from the town website. There's none of this is inside of there. That application needs to be pulled, it needs to be refiled, and the community needs to be renoticed so people can have an ability to take a look at these facts and understand it. Finding out, what are we at? 5 days before the town could potentially vote on this thing, that there's going to be a concert venue in there, when none of this information has been disclosed to the public. It needs, that meeting next week, you guys should not be hearing that application until the community's been properly notified. This document that you guys send out to everybody should say that they're going to have a concert venue there. There is a real possibility for tens of thousands of people to come and have a concert there. And there's nothing you can do about it, Mag. The thing's been legalized. The Zoning Board of Appeals has told them that they could have 2 concerts there every year. It's a real problem. This island could tip over. We're 90 miles away from the largest city in the United States of America. And if all those kids want to hop in an Uber or get on a train and get here, they're going to get here. That's exactly what happens over there on the Shinnecock property. 10,000 people. They think it might be 2x that this year. It could be as much as 20,000 people. They're calling it the Coachella of the East Coast. I don't know if you're familiar with what Coachella is. Okay, well, Coachella has 78 acres as their concert venue, and 125,000 people show up each day, or 250,000 people for 2 days. That's just 78 acres. This thing over here is 242 acres. They have Beyonce over there at Sylvester Manor. They've got that woman on speed dial. If they want to do a Beyonce concert, I'm glad you find this amusing apparently, but it's
I
a real problem.
appreciate you bringing it to our attention so that we can consider it in the application review.
Thank you so much. The application needs to be removed from the agenda next week, and the community needs to be appropriately notified. Or I will certainly be here to make my comments inside of the public hearing. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Last thing I want to mention, if we're going to break the laws like that for Sylvester Manor Educational Farm, all of them, toss them out the window, then whatever we need to do in order to see to it that Bert Waith gets whatever it is he needs to conduct business here, I think even if we need to bend the rules a little bit, we need to do it for Bert. He's one of the few remaining hardworking businessmen here on the island. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other public comments on topics that we won't be discussing? Kim Nolan?
Later.
Kim, I see your hand up. But we can't hear you. You're still muted, Kim. She seems to be having technical difficulties. So Kim, will circle back if you're able to get, oh, Pam, you have your hand up?
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to take to task the lack of transparency of the town. You have 4 items on the agenda that are all going to public hearings. You were going to be discussing them in one way, shape, or form today, but many documents that would be pertaining to those topics have not been posted on the town website 24 hours prior to this meeting. This is a violation of the open meetings law. If you're going to discuss them, they need to be posted. The people need to be able to follow along with your discussion. That is the whole purpose of the open meetings law. We don't need to discuss the topics in detail if they're going to a public hearing, but we certainly should be able to follow along with the conversation. And without having these documents posted and you discussing them, I find it totally improper procedure for this town board to conduct some of these discussions today on any of these topics.
Which documents are not posted?
We do not have the language on the ADU exemption. We have no language posted on this irrigation code. There is nothing posted about the site plan review, and there is nothing posted about the timetable on the comprehensive plan. The only
Okay.
document that managed to make posting yesterday was the review of the new update of the comprehensive plan, which I certainly appreciate, and it will give folks a long time to take a good look at that.
Yeah, we only received that yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
fine. And that's fine, but you have these other items on the agenda. We don't know how they were revised. We don't know when they were discussed. We don't know who vetted them. We don't
Well,
know who's
they
on this,
are-
we don't know who, and let me just finish. We don't know who's on these subcommittees. We don't know how many times the subcommittees have met. We have no minutes of subcommittee meetings, also required under open meetings law. We have no attendance records. We have no appointments of who's on them. And I know there are many. There's a wetlands code, there was irrigation, there was the comprehensive plan has one, the hazardous mitigation plan has one. Who are on all of these committees? When are they meeting? And what are they saying? This has not been put forward to the public. This is what is my irritated topic of the day. And I'm
Thank you,
sorry,
Pam.
but I must bring it to your attention because it is in fact in violation of open meetings laws. And it's time that the town board allow the people to follow along with the conversation. Whether or not we are permitted to discuss it is another situation. And certainly that is what the town board can certainly make the regulations on. but giving us the information so we can follow along with discussions. And it's not only the town board, it happens in other meetings as well. Now, will the planning board have new Sylvester Manor documents posted so we can see them before the meeting tonight? I mean, this is all I'm asking for, is transparency on documentation. And I would like to see the town board address this with the subcommittees. I do want a list of who's on them, when they've met, where their meetings are, and where the minutes are. This is
Okay, thank you.
integral of public participation in
Mhm.
all things that affect everyone on Shelter Island. My other comment is going to be this. I see that you are going to be discussing the comprehensive plan draft and the timetable. I would like to see a timetable posted on the website that you will be discussing and agreeing upon today, perhaps. And I would like to see this town board review Chapter 11, the implementation plan, before this goes any further into the process to the Suffolk County Planning Commission or gets a public hearing set. You know, that plan was never presented to the public at the September 2023 workshop. That board was not in the BFJ presentation that day. It was the missing board out of all of them. Every chapter had a board, but Chapter 11. So the public didn't see it. It didn't go to Suffolk County Planning Commission when you first sent it to them. It has not been reviewed by this town board. And now we have what seems to be closer to a final draft of the entire document. And I would like to see the town board review that before any more happens with this plan.
Thank you, Pam. We will be
Thank you.
reviewing all of it.
Thank you
Kim?
very much.
I'm trying again. Can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to affirm what Pam said about Chapter 11 of the comprehensive plan. The town board sent representatives to meet with the Shelter Island Association, which represents 9 neighborhoods and a lot of the tax base here. And we did have a good meeting with them 2 years ago about the comp plan. Obviously, it's changed probably a lot since then, but one thing that never happened was that the key Chapter 11 on implementation of the plan, which will drive what happens on the island for the next 10 to 20 years, was never discussed in public or by the town board. This absolutely must happen as a matter of procedure to adopt such a plan. And I think that you should address that first off. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Anybody else? Tom Fields?
John.
Yes, good morning. I'd like to speak to the subject of the recent winter ice and the aquaculture disaster that's occurred. I want to, first of all, fully disclose that I am a member of the Waterways Advisory Committee and also serve recently appointed on the Suffolk County Working Waterfront Committee, and that I am not representing them at all in this conversation here. I have 2 letters I would like to read to the town board. One of them is my own making, and the other one is from a resident who could not attend this meeting. I have her permission to read it to you. So I'd like to start with her letter, if I could, please.
Yep.
Let me see if I can get it. Okay, this is Jillian Catula. She lives, she's over on South Midway Road, I believe. She's a resident. She holds commercial DEC permits. Family is also commercial fishing. And she writes, see if I can spit this out correctly here. Most people see shellfish on their plate and not went into getting it there. They don't know there's a difference between what a bayman is or what an aquaculturist is. That might not be the right term. I use the proper one. They also don't have the knowledge of how each fishery works, the gear, knowledge of weather, anything and everything that affects it. I think there needs to be an education of what happened this winter and how it could have been preventable. how most of this gear wasn't properly winterized. This wasn't a crazy storm. It was just a winter, a normal winter, one that we haven't seen in a long time, but are grateful it came back. The winters have been have been abnormal, and people need to understand that. I think people need to be educated on the further damage the broken gear that's still out in the water will cause to other fisheries. I wasn't looking to single out the oyster farmer. Never mind, never mind. I don't want to bring that up because that we discussed not bringing that up. Anyway, there were no tags on some of this gear. Trying not to bring up a fight. That's what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, without starting a fight, I think I'm going to end that part of the letter right there and continue on with my own letter. Because apparently there was some scruffle somewhere, and I don't want to bring that up.
Okay, thank you.
So that's a portion of her letter. I'm sorry I wasn't able to read the whole thing, and I was rather jittery on it. This letter here is my letter, and I intend on sending this off to, the Congressman Lalota is right top of the list. So I'll read this letter to you too. This is for more information for everybody, more than anything else. As I said, I'm not picking on any individual farmer. Some of them behaved themselves, and some of them didn't. And this is not an issue that's specific to Peconic Bay. This is an issue that starts in Delaware and goes north. This is an entire northeastern issue. Okay, I'm trying to speak to our local issue about it, but you do need to know that this isn't just here. This is all across the Northeast. So my letter goes as, my name is Tom Field. I'm a wild caught commercial seafood harvester and lifelong 54-year resident of Shelter Island. I'm very upset and extremely scared this agricultural disaster will destroy my lifelong dream of ownership of a small bay dragger I am currently making payments on. It's almost half paid off. The full disclosure speech is included there. I believe, as do other wild-caught commercial seafood harvesters, that this aquaculture disaster was avoidable. This happened years ago to a smaller extent. There were less lease sites and a lot less gear back then. All the aquaculture gear should have been winterized, sunk to the bottom, in little quotes. Certain aquaculturists were irresponsible and should be held accountable. The disaster is twofold. I fear the plight of the oyster farmer is getting most of the attention. Aquaculturists created this disaster by being irresponsible and should be held accountable, not be giving more free money to rebuild. What about all the bay scallopers that have lost the ability to scallop in years? Where's the free money for us? The other side, I fear, is not getting enough attention. Is the ecological damage that has been done. The pollution that will occur that will for years to come be a public safety risk and a risk to vessels and property. If a beachgoer unknowingly comes in contact with this submerged gear, they will end up in the hospital. I have worked with this gear, and it is sharp and dangerous. If a scallop boat gets entangled in this ghost gear, there's a real risk of capsizing or sinking. This gear is everywhere, and that brings me to my biggest fear as I fish out in the deeper water a little bit closer to Gardiner's Island. My newly acquired 31-foot boat I'm currently making payments on has one net. There's no backup net. When this net is destroyed as a result of this ghost gear, and it will happen, it will literally put me out of business and I lose all that I've worked for and lifelong dream with it. I simply do not have $10,000 to $14,000 for a new net. I am currently drafting a letter intended to get as many signatures as I can throughout the east end of Long Island. The goals of this letter are: stop any further expansion of the Suffolk County Aquaculture Lease Program; two, hold those responsible for this disaster accountable, i.e., fines, revocation of permits; suggest new rules and regulations for the remaining aquaculturists who were responsible and winterized their gear, i.e., marking of gear and winterization of gear; require underwater surveys of the lease sites for compliance on current leases and to ensure ghost gear was not left on old lease sites. And number five, to ensure funding is available immediately to the wild-caught seafood harvesters for destroyed gears and damaged vessels. This fund must be accessible for years to come without time-consuming red tape. In closing, I wish you will see this through the eyes of a wild-caught seafood harvesters whose livelihood and dream is on the line. Wild-caught seafood harvesters are a dying breed, and I feel the need to be a voice for those that are left that won't speak up. By nature, wild-caught seafood harvesters are fiercely independent. Most have lost their faith in government and are not likely to speak to government officials. And there's my contact information at the end of it. I would just like to, I'm trying to bring this attention to the town board. First, because I'm not sure that everyone realizes the gravity of the situation. Like I said, it's not localized to this East End. It's everywhere, and there needs to be, I think what I'm probably going to ask for in the future is some sort of statement from the town board, just to know where you stand on this issue, and it's really it's going to hurt a lot of people, and it just, there's no accountability. I looked up and I looked up a couple of definitions, and negligence was one of them. Gross negligence was looked up, and then there was another one that I'm not. If somebody gets hurt, it's actually called reckless endangerment. I'm scared. I could lose everything in the spring when I launch this boat. I think that the town board should, at least recognize that this is a problem. And, I don't know what else to do. That's why I'm drafting these letters and sending these letters out and speaking on the subject, because I am scared. I am scared. I'd like to thank you for your time, and hopefully you'll consider this.
Thank you, Tom. You've given
Thank
us
you,
a
Tom.
lot to think about.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? John?
John Cronin, former town engineer. Just a comment and a suggestion relative to the remark about materials on the town website. I usually try, when I come to these meetings, to review these items. And I was able to find most, if not all, of these items on the town website. So the suggestion that I would make, in view of the fact that it seems to me as though you're all doing your job to try to ensure that that material is available to the public, is I find the new website a little difficult to navigate. It's not always immediately obvious about where these materials are located. Most times I can find them fairly easily, but maybe you want to think about establishing some sort of linkage between the announcement about a work session or a town meeting and where on the website the documents are actually located.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Because these are available. Sometimes their location is a little obscure. Excuse me. But a little digging, you usually can find them. So I think you guys are doing your job to try to make sure that the material is available to the public, but the website may not be effectively giving that information out. Thank you.
Thank you. Bert, you had something?
I listened to Tom and I was very persuasive. I just, as a lease recipient in the aquaculture program in Suffolk County, we do go through a permit process with the county, the New York State DEC, and the Army Corps of Engineers, and along with the State Department. We also have to submit a annual report to the county about our farms, and a lot of these questions are asked, what Tom says. And I know that this was, I believe, an extreme winter. We haven't seen it in quite a long time. And our congressman did send a letter to NOAA and trying to see if they would declare it a disaster, similar to what Hurricane Bob did in the years ago. And so, to directly, we try in the industry to be responsible to the environment. And so I understand he wasn't saying that we were irresponsible, but there's definitely ghost gear out there. There have been farms that have closed. There is a requirement in the county that once your farm is closed, that you are to remove your gear. Has there been final inspections of that? I don't know, and that might be a good suggestion. I think the winterizing, I think as far as best practices, that's obviously going to be on the top of the list next year for everybody. I've sunk, a good portion of my farm. I didn't do the whole thing. I know people that have sunk their whole farm, particularly west of Robbins Island. And some of those farms did not have a problem and a couple of them did. So it wasn't universal that if you do sink, you avoided every problem. And there's also farms that are completely submerged, what they call off-bottom cultivation, that got damaged. And some of that damage was from nav buoys that were displaced and dragged through their farm. So there's multiple issues that took place of why gear is misplaced. And so the responsibility is for everybody out there to be secure. And I know it's could be a hardship for Tom if his gear gets broken, and nobody wants to see that. As far as, oyster farmers getting support from the government, there has been some grant programs. I understand that. I've never received one. I've been trying. I'd like to. But as far as Scalibur goes, the town does seeding every year. So there is some, indirect support to them. And I think it should continue. As far as my permit, I'll talk about that other time. But I think that we all want to be responsible. And like I said, there are mechanisms within the DEC of which we have to tell them how much gear that we have, what the line spacing is, where they are in our farm. And so hopefully, that all the gear will be accounted for and not harm them. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other hands, so let's move on to the agenda. Business on town property. So Mr. Softy, I saw responded to your request, and he pretty much said that he has no problem turning off the music when he stops, and he will make his stops wherever we tell him to. So essentially, he's fine with the same conditions he had last year. So we can talk about him when we write or draft the resolutions. We'll kind of mimic what we did last year. And then the other business on town property application that we were discussing was Eeltown Oysters. And that is Bert's request to work out of Grace's Lane this summer instead of Daniel Lord Road. I know Amber had a meeting with you and Bo. You can come up, yes. I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know what was said. Thomas, were you there?
No, I wasn't.
No, you weren't there.
If you want to wait until she gets back, and Ben, I'm okay with that too. I don't think there's
Okay.
Was
any
that-
big rush to
Yeah.
do that.
That would be nice.
If you're open to it, just because I would love to get,
Yeah,
I would love to get
you know,
updated from her
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know she
I think
was,
the
she's
more- The
out
more voices, the better.
unexpectedly.
Yeah. And Albert, I just want to tell you, I didn't mean to, be yelling at you last time. I meant that just for like the general environment for everybody, not just, nobody in specifically, just my own frustration with the way, whatever I was dealing with, and not personally for you, and I apologize for that.
Okay, thank you,
All
Greg.
right.
Thanks.
All
Yeah,
right.
we'll move that to next week when everybody's back and we
Okay,
can
thanks.
discuss it more robustly.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, History Museum parking lease.
Okay.
This is something that we've been doing annually with them, giving permission to use the town property next door for parking for the farmer's market and things like that. See, did anyone have any comments on the lease? We were talking about restricting them from using the back half of
That
the
was
lot.
going to be my comment, was just, yeah, I think it's really important that they just keep to the front,
Mhm.
especially with the stuff that we know is going to be, we're going to need to be dealing with the site, probably cleaning it up. And I know sometimes they use it as overflow, but
I would
Yeah.
agree. I think it's good for them to use the front half. There's a lot in the back where
Yeah.
it's town materials, town trucks, vehicles, it's the impound lot. It would be better to not have.
yeah, and I know,
Parking in
like,
the
I know that they often, well, I know that like when I've been there doing, whatever thing, that's where they basically put all the vendors, they have them park back there. But I think that, anyway. So I think like that would be my only
Hey,
condition.
Meg.
Keep it to the front. Oh, hey,
Sorry, I
Ken.
don't have my.
Yeah, no worries.
I would agree. I think they should focus on the front half of that lot
Mhm.
because there's a lot going on back there. There's especially a lot going on back there during the summer season. I mean, a lot of our equipment moves out of there and moves back to
Yeah.
the shop, but we do go in and out of there when we're doing catch basin work. It's just better to not. There's always potentially something somebody could drive over, pop a tire, it's just not, it's not a good idea for anybody to be back there. That's not a police officer or a highway employee.
Yeah. So I think that would be my only. So I think we usually do like the year lease.
Yeah. So I think that when we draft that, we want to put that condition. And we could even enclose the survey and just delineate the area that they're allowed to use. So it's clear for everybody.
Ken, are you working? Is there work going on back there over weekends?
Hey, Ken.
Ken?
Might have lost Ken.
Might have gotten distracted. They don't typically work out of there on the weekends, not that I've seen. I haven't seen a lot of activity while the farmer's market's going on. That's not usually an issue. Or at least it hasn't been. I haven't had any complaints.
Yeah, it's mostly like, I guess what like my experience of it has been, is just if they've moved stuff during the week, they don't necessarily have it all buttoned back up. You know what I mean? It's like a working site. So if they were moving stuff around on a Friday or something like that, it might be a little bit
Yeah.
in disarray till Monday, which is fine, but
I mean, I haven't made a study of it, but I know if there is a need for parking, they park facing the woods to the right. In a
I think
line.
that's okay, as long as it's on the front half. You know how the lot, you have, it's the
But it
rectangle and
extends kind
then
of out
it
of,
like narrows down.
out of the lot a little bit and it goes back,
Yeah.
it's overflow.
well, they do,
Let me finish.
sorry.
If they don't have that option,
Huh?
I think that's gonna cause more problems than just parking there as overflow. That's all. They're gonna circle around, they're gonna be waiting in the lot. I just think the issues could be greater, that's all.
Yeah. I think I just have, like, my concern is the safety of people parking back there. but I hear you.
All right, we'll look at the survey and kind of delineate like a stopping point, because there is a bit of a path before you get back to where
Yes.
all the gear
Yeah.
is. So you're talking about letting them continue to park on that
Yeah.
driveway portion.
Yes,
Yeah, that seems fine.
That's fine.
if need be. that's all.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. The next topic is the tax exemptions on the ADUs. There's revised language.
Should we go forward with this? I know John indicated that he found it, it was posted, but I think most of the documents are posted in one location, under the records, on the heading, where all those really should be posted, so they're
Yeah.
kind of easy to see. And the items that weren't there, present there, should we really talk about them? In the interest of, as they say, transparency,
Well, they are all posted.
but not in the location that really, we should have documents posted.
Well, it's under discussion documents. I see all the tax exemption documents. I set
Is
the,
the latest one there, that Thomas?
let me see.
I don't think that was there the last time I looked.
It's a good,
And it wasn't posted 24 hours.
Well, it doesn't, I mean, it's whatever's feasible. If we don't have the document within 24 hours of the meeting, we obviously can't post it. So if we received it yesterday, then we'd post it yesterday. It may not be a full 24 hours, but that's as soon as we got it. That's the way the rule's written.
The changes are pretty minor. Could we just share screen so everybody could see it? Because it's pretty minor, like it's a one page,
Mhm.
or at least for the ADU stuff. It's like not that many changes.
I don't think these are critical. I'll just take one final statement. I don't think these are critical to discuss about. There's no time urgency for it. I just think in the interest of transparency, we don't discuss them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no fire on them. They're not going to go into effect
That's all.
this year. They're.
I don't think there's a need.
For 27, so if, everybody feels like uncomfortable discussing them today, we can push them, but,
I mean, I feel comfortable, but I also hear what you're saying, so, I don't know what anybody else's feeling is. Ben?
I would like to push this. There's no time urgency. We missed the window for 2026. Let the public get them, read them, talk to us about them. There's
Well,
no
I mean,
urgency.
part of it is that we need to discuss it, make a decision on what we're going to put forward to the public. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the version that is going to a hearing. This is our discussion of what we're going to put forward for a hearing. So it's not even like a final draft. It's our discussion of the topic.
No, that's true, Meg, but still, the public needs the ability to follow along, and I don't think they've been given that ability.
Okay.
And like I said, if there was urgency, I'd be working alongside with you, but the time has passed, so let's do it properly and take that opportunity.
All right. So I'm hearing more that they want to push it. We'll push it. All right, the next topic, irrigation code, permit and fees. So
That wasn't posted either.
it's for our discussion. We're going to talk about it.
It's not posted.
It
If we're
is-
not posting something.
It was
why are we moving
posted
forward?
last week, wasn't it?
Yes.
So it was posted last week because it got bumped from the agenda. And at least I see, and maybe we all know that maybe I'm not great with the SharePoint, but I did see it up there and it has been on the agenda for 2 weeks.
Like, we can't just keep bumping the entire agenda. So this is one that I would like to discuss because it is a little time sensitive. It's a minor tweak to the code. What we're looking to do is streamline and kind of clarify the permitting process for the grandfathered irrigation systems, for the new cistern turf irrigation systems, and add in a permit requirement for essentially soaker hose or drip irrigation systems.
Can I ask just like a process question? So what committee does this come out of?
So Mary Ellen, who is obviously. in
Or, yeah, like,
the
where-
department, Yeah.
Like where did this
came
come
to
from?
us,
Okay.
and she's this has been an issue for the last few years, the
Got
way
it.
that this process works.
Okay.
And it's always required this page 3 of the application where you have to do a survey of the site, and there's all these requirements. And the irrigation systems aren't changing year to year, right? They're pretty stable.
Right, right.
So what we've done is we met with Reed, Mary Ellen, myself. There was someone else on the committee, but I don't know who it was. I feel like I've fallen off of it. And we were trying to address this problem of getting essentially photocopied applications years after year without any change or real updates. And so one of the things that we also came across was that there's a lot of complaints. We get a lot of complaints about drip irrigation because it's the most visible irrigation. People
Right.
see it everywhere. And we don't really have a solid process for permitting it, so that if it fails or something goes wrong, like a squirrel eats through it and it's like shooting water everywhere, the building department has no contact for it because we don't have a permit for it. So part of the goal is to have contact information for all the properties that are getting the irrigation, so that if there is an issue, we know who to call and contact and reach out to. So what the modifications are looking to do is, and there's only a handful of changes that we're proposing at this point, is to create a system where we can request permits for drip irrigation, streamline and kind of clarify the grandfathered irrigation. And grandfathered irrigation is systems that were well-drawn turf irrigation prior to the new code that went into place saying it all had to be cistern.
Okay.
So there are still about 100, maybe 115 of those well-drawn irrigation systems, and they're slowly converting over to cistern. When we do a larger review of the irrigation code, we're going to kind of require that they convert to cisterns because they have the highest probability of causing saltwater intrusion.
Got it.
Of course, they're going to salt themselves first before they salt anyone around them, but it's just for environmental reasons and, for the sake of everyone's aquifer, it's probably the smart move. So what we're currently proposing while we work on the other recommendations is some minor changes to the code that would allow us to just streamline this permitting process. The first one is, let me see. If you go to 82-5 irrigation permit. It says all persons using a turf irrigation system, whether grandfathered or cistern or drip irrigation system. And then we just eliminated the number of emitters. So it's essentially if you have an irrigation system, you would be required to get a permit. The next change we're looking at is on 82.5 FC, essentially. It's about the permitting process. So right now, licensed irrigation contractors get the same license as like any contractor, any builder, any landscaper. But what we wanted to do is add the requirement so that if you're doing turf irrigation, Suffolk County does issue you a license, and you have a limited plumber's license. So we wanted to make that a requirement if you're installing turf irrigation, that you just demonstrate that you have that license. So that was one of the things that we're putting in to make sure that the people installing turf irrigation are licensed to do so that we know it's done correctly and well, and that they have some stake in the game because they have a license on the line. The next one was 82.8 drip irrigation requirements. So there's a part here that we're going to want to discuss. So if you go down to C, it says in the non-near shore zone, a drip irrigation system, and then we're eliminating the emitter number, will require an irrigation permit. So what we were going to change was we were just going to say all drip irrigation systems will require an irrigation permit. Now, the question that some of the like the landscapers came back to us with was, is it really necessary to have us get a permit for everywhere island-wide? Or should we just be in the nearshore overlay that we have to get a permit for drip irrigation?
Right.
So that was one of the things that I wanted to discuss at the table is, do we think it's appropriate for limiting it to the nearshore overlay or requiring them for the whole island for drip irrigation. You know, the thought was so that we would have records so that if something failed with the system, we know who to reach out to and contact. That was the whole kind of purpose for permitting. They think it might be arduous to have to get permits for all their drip irrigation systems, but the building department feels like they could handle that they can handle the flow of those, that number of permits. So that we will consider when looking at this proposal.
Can I ask a question as to how does the building department handling it? Like, are they getting like reports of just like, you know what I mean? Like, what is the
They get a lot of
compliance kind of, okay.
Yeah, so they get a lot of complaints. People will be walking around their neighborhood and they'll just see drip irrigation and they'll call the building department. Hey, are they allowed to have this? It looks like a lot. And it's really hard for the building department to enforce the code because it's like the number of emitters. So they have to go and try to dig up how much is buried under the mulch and figure out the length and how many emitters would be in that length. And it's not an enforceable or reasonable expectation that the code puts on the building department.
Got it.
So we're trying to make it clean and streamlined and enforceable. That way, if we get a complaint, we can be, look, they have a permit or they don't have a permit. And then you can say, hey, you're in violation, you need a permit for your irrigation, come in. And then, so it gives them a little more teeth and a little bit of more enforcement capability. And it also gives us like a checks and balances.
Do we have a rough count? of how many?
No, because we have no way of knowing, right? So this would also help us understand how prevalent it is, right? So that's kind of what we're looking to do here. In 82.8D, I just corrected the language. It says near shore. I just added a peninsula overlay zone. And so in there, we're taking out the word only. So it's in the near shore peninsula overlay zone, a drip system, taking out the number, shall require an irrigation permit and shall meet the following additional standards. So in the near shore, there's additional standards that are required, that are not required in the center, so to speak. And then the other one is 82-9 irrigation system operation. We're eliminating number 4.
Okay.
So where it says irrigation is allowed to establish new plantings for a period of 150 days only between 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. That's incredibly hard to enforce. You can't tell how many days it's been in the ground and people are debating, is it 150 consecutive days? What if it rains? Do I get to not count that day? So it gets silly. So instead, we're just eliminating that and just requiring a permit. You put in irrigation,
So it's like-
it's an annual permit. If your plantings are established at the end of the year, you take the irrigation out and you don't need to renew your permit. If they're not ready, you renew your permit. So we're trying to make it simple and enforceable. And that's it. That's what we're looking to do at the moment, are just those changes.
And just for my understanding, so previously, if you were to put in new plantings and you put in a drip irrigation system, you don't need any kind of permitting?
Well, no, it would depend. If it's what, 100 and, if it's 250 emitters in the nearshore overlay, you don't need a permit. If it's more than 250 emitters, you do need a permit, even if it's temporary. If you are not in the nearshore overlay and you had, what is it? It's 1,500 emitters, then you don't need a permit. If you go over 1,500 emitters, you do need a permit. So it was very convoluted.
Got it.
So we're trying to just clean it up so that it's fair for everybody. And we're trying to make it a more streamlined process for the people applying for the permits too. So they can just take everybody has a basic survey of their property and draw on it where the system is going, so that there's some understanding of where it is. And then pretty much their contact information is what we're looking for. And then the other thing that would be required if we decide to move forward with this is that we need to set fees. So right now, the grandfathered irrigation application is $350. The turf irrigation system with the cistern is $100. And the reason it's $100 is because there's also fees associated with the cistern. So we didn't want to like double down. And then what we're proposing is that the drip irrigation system would be a $50 application. and it would be it would renew annually. So if you don't need it, you can
Right.
just take it out.
And is there any like, I know that there'd be like the turf irrigation with the cistern, for the source of water for the drip irrigation, is there any?
Pretty much all drip irrigation is being well drawn.
Okay, I was like, that's kind of what I'm assuming. I was like, is there any context in here that I'm missing?
No, it's pretty much all
Okay.
well drawn. And what we've learned is that because it's such a slow draw from the well, it doesn't have the same impact that a turf irrigation system would have. So it's a safer form of irrigation and it's more efficient with the watering. There's less like evapotranspiration and things like that because you're not spraying it into the air. It's kind of going right down into the root system.
Got it.
So, we're proposing in like the more robust change of the code, timers and regulators and things like that, but we're not ready to
We're not
present
ready,
that
yeah.
yet. So we just wanted to start with this so people could get it done before the summer season kicks in.
That makes sense. And then for the fee structure, are these the 350 and obviously the drip irrigation thing, that's new.
Right.
But is this the previous fees for the
Right.
grandfather?
Those
Or
are-
those like kind of just carry over?
Those are carrying over.
Okay,
And then we would be adding the new fee of $50 for the drip irrigation.
okay.
And I'm anticipating a lot of those applications.
And then I guess my question is just like, since you met with like, the building department, do they feel like they have the capacity to take on all these applications?
They do. I asked Mary Ellen the same question.
Yeah, I was like, I know how busy they are. I was like, can we really, I don't want to set up a process that like, can we manage it?
I asked the same question because, I was talking to some of the landscapers and they're like, well, I'll do 3 different properties in a day. That's 3 applications. Can the building department handle it? So I asked that to Mary Ellen and she's like, yes, we will.
Okay.
So if they feel like they can handle it, then,
And then I guess my question is, based on, it sounds like that they often get complaints and that they're out there. You know what I mean? What I'm hearing is this is something that comes up a lot, maybe with like neighbors walking around the neighborhood. Do we feel that these fees are appropriate to kind of cover the time needed by, by the staff to kind of manage this?
I think so. Because we've streamlined the application, it's not as complicated for them to review.
Okay.
So it won't take as long. And if we have the permits on file, if someone calls in a complaint, instead of having to go to the site, we'll be able to look through the records and say, they have a valid permit. Is there something wrong with the system? If there's something wrong with the system and there's water everywhere or something, then we can go out and look. But at least then we have a more streamlined response to the complaints.
Got it.
And that doesn't always require going to the site.
So maybe it'll actually help.
Yeah.
And so it might be more, what I'm hearing is like
more
more
efficient.
office time, but maybe less like building inspector on site time.
Right.
Okay, that's cool.
And hopefully less neighbor to neighbor animosity. If people are feeling like it's under check, it's been regulated, we have a permit, they're doing the right thing. So that's the hope.
Okay. Well, those are like my questions on it.
Yeah. So I figured you guys can take it, look at it,
Yeah.
and we can circle back and discuss it more. But I just wanted to put it on everybody's radar so that what we're trying to look to do right now. And Mary Ellen's been talking about doing this for, I want to say 3 years. So there actually used to be an irrigation subcommittee that would meet to go over all the grandfather irrigation permits and their salinity testing, and we still do all the salinity testing, all that, but it's just something that, kind of got dropped in some of the administrative changes, so want to pick it back up. All right, the next thing we have, if everybody's good with that, we'll move on to the next topic, which is the investment policy.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're finally getting to it. So I know I brought this forward January. What? I don't even know. Anyway, so I guess just to kind of go back over, as we were kind of doing our organizational meeting, the investment policy that we had was very out of date. So I took, only like 20 years. It's cool. It's cool. So I took the opportunity to redraft it, drawing largely on, there was like a sample policy from the comptroller's office. It was great because it was perfect timing because I was at the newly elected training. So as I was working on this, so I had the opportunity to connect with the office and just kind of talk through some of this. So I know we've talked about it a little bit. I guess so I can kind of run through, I don't know if everyone's I'm going to run through just kind of like the things that I really think are of note, and then I'm happy to discuss anything else or questions. So the one thing that I kind of wanted to kind of bring up was that just notes that I thought we should have an official undertaking or bond to kind of cover the supervisor's actions or folks that are making those investment policies. It's just kind of a matter of course. Basically throughout the policy, we've kind of just talked about like the supervisor making those decisions, because the supervisor serves as the town's chief financial officer. It could also be the town board, but just kind of noting this here. The one change that, or not the one change, but one of the suggestions in talking with the comptroller's office is in the original policy, and then also in this policy that I put together, they refer to outside documents. And so my suggestion and what I have kind of included here is those be included as an appendix that could just be updated, because one of the things that I saw when I was looking at the investment policy is it referred to all these outside things that no one could find. And so my suggestion would be is those just be included as part of it as an appendix. And then that way, if there's anything that around our processes that change, just that appendix could get modified, right? So we don't have to, so it's not like we're searching for all this stuff and no one can find it. And, also we should be looking at this every year, but my guess is that then it would just, you could just like update the appendix as like, oh, we're going to do this differently, or we're going to review it every, I don't know, whatever. So that is like the one thing I did want to kind of point out. I think especially for a small municipality, I think it's just makes it a little bit more manageable for us.
Are you going to put the appendices together?
Well, I had talked to, it's something that I would need to work on with Amber, because it talks to the controls that are in place.
Okay.
And I don't actually know what those controls are because I don't know how she's managing it. So that would be something that my hope is that she and I could like work on together. Okay. So she said just that there was something that existed, so she was gonna find it. And so that would be, I think, the only thing that really needs to come together on that.
Okay.
And kind of to that appendix. So in the appendix, it's about cash controls, a list of financial institutions, appropriate limits. I think okay, here we go. I actually added this to the policy. So the supervisor shall revise and attach yearly an appendix to contain a list of the financial institutions and dealers approved for investment purposes and establish appropriate limits, an updated bond or official undertaking, list of depositories with the amount and method by which secured, and then a written internal controls procedure. So the first one and three are pretty easy. I'm sure that those exist, that she just needs to kind of write those up. The bond, we just need to double check with our insurance. It might even be something that we have already, but it should just be attached. And then the written internal controls procedure, that's something that Amber would need to kind of, it's part of the audit or something like that.
And it's something that's a little different for each department. So like the internal controls for highway are different than the town clerk, the justice court, rather than,
Yeah, so it should be,
clerk's office, so they're all a little,
well, yeah, there should be controls specifically for investment. So
Yeah.
I know Amber had said that she thought that that they existed somewhere. So it would just be locating those, and which also is like, how closely are we following them if it's hard to find them? And or also it might just be writing down what the procedure is that we're actually doing. I don't think that should be very crazy or laborious, but it's just kind of like saying like, this is what we do. So anyway, that is,
one of the things in here, I saw the note, that repos listed previously, you removed those, but I think we actually need to keep them in, because one of the places we invest our money is the New York class accounts, and in the New York class accounts, they contain repos. And so if we take it out of our policy, then I don't think that we'd be able to invest into the class accounts.
okay,
So I
well,
think
let's,
that's
yeah.
why it was in there. So that's.
Okay, the comptroller head office had suggested that we take it out, but I'm happy to clarify with them of how that works.
All
We
right,
need
cool.
to keep our investments in your classic account.
Right, and
Yeah.
they are,
Yeah.
repos are included in the class accounts. So that's just one of the things
Yeah,
that I just wanted to
absolutely.
make sure we didn't,
Yeah.
cause
I'm happy,
ourselves.
I'm happy to double check of like, but yeah, that was their strong guidance. So I can get clarification from the comptroller's office of like how that works with the New York class accounts. Did anybody have any other comments or questions?
No, I'm sure Amber has some, but unfortunately she's not here. So,
You said you were gonna sit down with her if she had other documents or something.
Well, yeah, I've asked, so, I mean, really, she kind of needs to put together, does the chief financial officer, that like kind of, just because I don't have access to any of that information, so I've gotten as far as I can on this. So, I mean, that's really the thing that's needed next.
okay,
So,
all right. So we'll, let Amber know.
okay,
Next steps are working on the appendices, and you'll check on the class accounts and the repos. And once we have all the appendices, then I think we can move forward with it, because then it'll be complete,
yep.
right?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. All right, the next thing we have is site plan review, the introduction of the legislation. Yay. Okay. All right. So this is another legislation that has become more and more problematic the more we try to use it. So the goal of modifying the site plan review or updating the site plan review application is to help streamline and clarify the process. Right now, there's a lot of steps to it, and we made a minor modification, let's say last year or the year before, to incorporate not-for-profits into the site plan review process, but the process itself seems to be kind of cumbersome. And so this was another one that was worked on with a member of the planning board, the building department. In this one, we had multiple town attorneys working on it because they kept changing. So, we need everybody to really look at it and see if you think it's achieving that goal of helping streamline the process. We still want it to be effective. The goal of site plan review is to make sure that there's a balance between the needs of the community and the needs of the business, and that one is not significantly negatively impacting the other. And so we want to make sure that this is effective, but not a grueling and torturous process. We don't want it to be a barrier to entry for new businesses. And if there's a way to, like one of the things I want to look at when we look at this legislation is see if there's a way to make it an easier process for like businesses to change over. So if you have, retail to retail, do they need a full site plan review, or is there a type of administrative review we can do that's showing that it's not a more intense use, it's not going to have significant impact on parking? Is there something we can do for little changes like that? Obviously, if there's a big change, like going from a bank to a restaurant or something like that, it needs like a full in-depth site plan. But, you know, and so,
When you say like businesses, it might be helpful just to kind of talk about like, does that kind of fall under like minor site plan reviews?
that's, so
And
we.
so are you thinking, just for folks that may not be,
So one of the things that we've done in this version is we've tried to break it down into like an administrative site plan and more of a full site plan, a formal site plan review is what we're calling it. So an administrative site plan would be for minor changes, not significant changes in business usage, but maybe it's a new business coming into the space. And so right now we have it qualified by just like the amount, the square footage or lot coverage changes, things like that. And so, you know, what we want you to do is look at it, think about it, and see if that makes sense. See if it's reasonable, if it's going to, if you think it'll work, right? So these are ideas that we, you know, want the board to really look at.
so I mean, I think the thing is just, so, and just to kind of, so when you say administrative, you mean the minor site plan section? And so my question is, you know, it says that it could waive the public hearing.
Right.
So I think, could you, I guess my question is around like an administrative, just for my edification of just like, I guess like why would, so the minor site plan would go in front of the planning board. And it sounds like it could go faster, but it also could not if they decide to do a public, you know, I guess I'm just trying to think of like, how does this, the minor site plan review, how does that expedite it? Because it looks, and it, just to my untrained eye, similar, you know? I'm just trying to think of like the length of the process from the business's point of view.
Yeah.
Like, what is the
Well, I mean,
time savings here for this?
right, if you don't have to do the public hearing, you're saving 2 months in the process.
Right, but it sounds like, you could have to do a public hearing, so you really don't know when you apply? Or just like I said,
Right, but that's one of the things that like I want to try to figure out.
Okay.
Like, we were comfortable saying like, if it meets the qualifications for administrative, you can cut out the public hearing, but we wanted to leave it in and make sure everybody was on the same page with that. The whole point was like, hopefully some of these small changes won't have to go through such the arduous process, and it takes a lot of time for the town and money.
I mean, because I would almost think of just like if there was, and again, just kind of thinking out loud here, but just like if we could get the minor site plan, like get that really tight and then have, you know, maybe it's like a lesser fee and no public hearing if it like was under certain guidelines.
Right.
Just because I think one of the things, at least like some of the feedback that I've heard is it's just like, you just don't know how long it's going to take, right? And so I think with, you know, and maybe this needs to be tightened further so that it's appropriate to not have a public hearing.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, it could or couldn't, then you're going into the process and you're like, well, it could be a couple months or it could happen. And so I don't think it really solves the problem of an administrative review. So I kind of feel like it either, at least in my mind, it either like.
It is or it isn't.
It is or isn't,
Yeah.
right? Like, it either, because it really should either like go through the full process and you have to do the whole thing and the planning board gets involved and we're doing public hearings and everybody's going out to the site, which is appropriate, you know, for some things. But, you know, if it's like somebody doesn't like the look of the thing, you know what I mean? And they decide a minor site plan review is actually a major one.
Right.
The business is, you know, or maybe, you know, I think that one of the things, at least like what I heard in like the point of this is to give businesses a path to get up and running. So, you know, I guess what I would want to do is, like I said, if we need to make changes to this, but have there be a path of just like, if there's no major change of, you know, or whatever those guidelines are, that they can go like, okay, I'm going to follow this code to the letter. There's a clear path of just like, I don't have to go through a major thing if I stay within these parameters, so that they know that,
Makes sense.
right, that they can get their business up and running. But if it's just like,
They have to be tight, those
yeah, no, which is
definitive.
which is cool and I think totally fine. But one of the things I've heard from the business community is just like, you just don't know, right? And so if you like I said, if you could just make a clear path of just like, okay, you can't go over 10% and you can't plant trees that have red leaves or whatever it is, you know, like, so that you knew like, oh, you're going to take over a space and you know exactly what to do so you can get your business open. I think that is really, really important. And so I think that is like the public hearing here is like, I'm like, oh, I hate this.
That's what we would
I
like
hate
to
this.
accomplish. So if you have recommended changes, absolutely, like go in, make them, bring them back to the table, because that's our goal. That's what we would like to do, is make a document that is user-friendly, easily followed, and does exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I would say, you know, maybe for us to think about is in that minor site plan section, is there anything, do we feel okay with that? Do we feel like, is there any other, what could we do to the minor site plan section where we would feel that we could take out the public hearing?
Right.
Right? Yep. So if it needs to be narrower, cool, it needs to be narrower. But I think giving businesses a clear path would be really important.
Yes.
So like right now it says lot coverage 10%. Lot coverage, building area, it's all 10%.
You're on page 4, or 109.4.
Oh my gosh, sorry, I don't even know. It's like, yeah, 109.8.
109.8.
109.8. This is where I'm camped out.
Okay. 109.8 is formal site plan review elements.
What is in my mind?
Maybe you're on an older version of the code?
Notwithstanding the provisions of 109.7.
Ah, I see. You're looking at the version that the planning board sent. Okay,
Okay, sorry.
got you.
All
Yeah.
right,
It's around 109.8,
okay.
where we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not trying to trick you guys. So pre-existing structures, let's see. Basically, it looks like it's like a 10% mark, like you're not going to move 10%, like over 10% of lot coverage, 10% of building area, 10% of floor area.
Right.
Planning board deemed it unnecessary to preclude, just because the app, I don't totally understand that sentence. Meaning no, the planning, maybe I'm not, the planning board deemed it unnecessary to preclude the option of a minor site plan review, meaning no public hearing, just because the applicant needs or obtains a variance or variances. So they're saying, what are they saying there?
Hold on.
I was like, well,
If the applicant obtains a variance, so the way it's currently drafted, if you need to obtain a variance, you have to get site plan review. You have to have a public hearing.
okay,
What it's saying here is, even if that's not necessarily what they want to do. So if you get a variance, doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a public hearing on the site plan review.
okay.
It's okay.
Change of use.
Yeah, if you're going to a legally pre-existing use to another use which is allowed in the zoning district, which the resulting increase in site parking requirements, if any, will not increase lot coverage more than 10%.
And so, I mean, I wonder if this is something where we could maybe, like, do we need to flesh, you know what I mean? If we were gonna say that if you qualified for the minor site plan review, you know, so do we need to flesh out this language a little bit more? So we're really, you know, do we need to be any more specific in here, I wonder?
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems that we have with our zoning code is the parking requirements, because they're not done by usage, they're done by square foot. So you could have a warehouse that's just storing stuff and one guy who works there all day long, but you might be required to have 500 parking
Yeah.
spaces.
I just, one of the things that like other towns will do, or like East Hampton in particular,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with, is like, so you have full site plan review, then minor site plan, then like what you're talking about where there's just an administrative is more
Yeah.
just, if, like in East Hampton, if you're going from one permitted use to another permitted use,
Uh-huh.
there's no change in the required parking and no health department approval required.
Okay,
You don't need site plan at all.
yeah,
And so that's, and then minor site plan is more of like, it's, you want to have some environmental review, you want to have the board look at it. But
Okay.
it's a, you know, square footage, you know, percentage wise, square footage wise, it's smaller. The board has the authority to waive a public hearing if they want.
okay,
So it's not really making my, like, or at least, I mean, obviously, that's been decided too, but it's not really as much making the minor site plan. It's like basically making a third category of things where we just say, okay, it's going from one permitted use to another, no increase in parking, no health department, you know, review required.
right.
You just don't need site plan at all.
Yeah, so maybe, so the way I understand this code is that we have like major and minor, but I think what you're saying is like maybe you have major, minor, where maybe some of this is, you know, like you could have a public hearing if it's a big thing, and then we just we add in a third, which is just like administrative, which is just like you said. So maybe that's like an addition to it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting idea.
Thomas, quick question. This is Benjamin.
Yep.
In some of our local nearby towns, is there a sort of a relief clause, for instance, if a certain project does qualify for this administrative review, but there is some bizarre special condition that may not trigger what's in the code, but the board feels that it should have a closer look. Can a majority of the board push it to the next level of review?
I mean, the one I'm really familiar with is East Hampton, and they just have, you know, you either go to site plan or you don't. And then once you're in site plan, you either can be a minor site plan if you meet certain conditions, which means they waive the public hearing. Or there's not really a, you know, the board votes or the building inspector decides, you know, it's not, I mean, I guess trying to think, there might be a provision that's, you know, a matter of public controversy or something like that, the board, but I think that's more of a minor site plan versus public hearing
Right.
discussion of, you know, okay, if it meets these conditions and, you know, condition 5 is, it's not a matter of public controversy, you can waive a public hearing. But yeah, the idea generally is that you want people to have clear.
Like a clear path.
Yeah.
So Ben, just to be clear, what you're talking about is putting in a provision so that if it was an administrative review, that basically the board could pull it to a full site plan, is that, or
Yeah.
maybe
Or maybe the step below that, but something more than an administrative review. If there's a controversy or if there's a bizarre condition that is unique to the property in question.
What kind of bizarre condition are you thinking about? I'm trying to come up with a scenario in my head where that would be.
Well, I'd love to give you an example, but I don't think it's gonna help, and board just yell at me.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think that if the administrative review guidelines are tight enough, I mean, the whole point is to provide a clear path for businesses. And I guess my concern would be is putting in a condition where the business has made every effort to, comply with a very narrow set, but they could still be subject to a full site plan review.
Seems mean.
It seems like, what's the point, because if they could get pulled into it, I just wonder, you know, again, it doesn't give the business any kind of, you know,
Security.
any kind of secure, you know what I mean? It doesn't really do anything because.
Few people are more sensitive to this than me. Believe me, I understand the problem with Shelter Island House and Gardens Bay Country Club, and the reason that died was because there was no clear path for them to, you know, get a reasonable approval without expending crazy amounts of money. So if we're gonna really help the business community here in Shelter Island, we have to establish these clear paths. But
Yeah, I mean, I guess here's my thing is if we add kind of a wild card provision, how we, you know, I don't know that
It's no longer a clear.
it's no longer a clear path because it could be administrative and it could take a month, or you could be tied up for.
yeah.
So so I guess I would say maybe then I mean, obviously I can see that there could be concerns, but then maybe what we need to do is concentrate on making the administrative review, or the administrative process or the minor review tight, and be really thoughtful so that it just doesn't take,
Right.
We can always add language that we reserve the right, the board, whatever, reserves the right to
Right, but I guess
request additional or whatever.
right, but I guess my concern would be.
Something comes to light during the process. That's
Right, but if we do that, I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm because I think if that's in there, right? So I'm gonna imagine it from a business point of view, right? So we come up with all this language, right? So we put it out there, and I don't know, right? I have I'm going in and I want to do a business, and I read all the code and I think, fantastic. I'm not changing very much. I can absolutely, qualify for administrative, right? So I've got everything sorted. I'm going to try to open by the summer. Seems like a clear path. And then something happens. And even though I have followed everything to the letter, maybe, we don't know what future boards, and sometimes anyway, right? Somebody doesn't like the look of the cut of my hair, and they decide, she has to go to full site plan review. And now I'm hung up for a year. I guess my thing is how do we prevent, I think either we need to spend more time on our language to make sure it's exactly what we want, but I'm concerned that we're the problem, it's us. That the board could very negatively impact businesses who are, following the code to the letter of the law. Now that said, if there's something that we want, let's get clear with our code, you know what I mean? So that it's exactly what we want.
Well, and I think that the guidelines that Thomas outlined for the administrative reviews in East Hampton, if you trigger a health department, permit, a sanitary, whatever, that's an indication that you're changing your usage to something that might be more intense, which would require an extra level of review.
Yeah, which means.
It's not even you say it's not, at least there, it's not even administrative, it's just, you don't need it.
Right.
Like, just go get a building permit and
You're good.
build your thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
And so then maybe Albert, what you're kind of talking about is thinking about what that, we're kind of talking at administrative, but just kind of like that, the uses that are automatically basically okayed, and then what triggers that minor site plan, which that seems like where, we could say okay, maybe it's really minor, it doesn't need a public hearing, or maybe it does, but that seems like where there's that play there. But I would love to see a path where businesses, that there's just some uses that they can just do because they're just a clear path, right? So if they're changing something in our health department, so I would say, I think we need to think about what what the differences are between those, obviously full site plan, I feel like we understand, but fleshing out that minor versus what we're calling administrative.
Well, that wasn't my question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, my question to Thomas was, how have other towns dealt with that situation, which he has answered. And, but I was not suggesting that we try to get in the way and do this. I was just asking how this comes up. It's come up in this town more than once since I've been on this board. And I was wondering how other towns nearby have dealt with this problem. And we can talk about it offline, but it's something that we definitely need to keep in our head while we go through this language.
Apologies, I probably misunderstood what you were saying. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
So just a point of clarification, if we were to kind of think about, as you kind of talked about, like a 3-level system, for lack of better vocabulary, what would we need to, it seems like we would need to add another section that just says, if you, you know,
Right, if you meet these
you
criteria,
meet
you
these-
don't need site plan review.
yeah, so it seems like there would just be another section that would be needed to be added in.
Okay.
And then if we were to look at that, would that be like language that like Thomas, you could help us insert, or like what is like our process with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Sweet, okay. Did anybody have any feelings about the clearing and grading? I know that was another thing that got brought up. The gist of it being, you know, that the site plan review, you know, if you could basically, I'm gonna state it imperfectly here, so just jump in.
Section are we looking at?
It is
1099.
109.3.5, and so the issue that had kind of come up, yeah, for,
1099, they talked about.
oh, B5, sorry, thanks. And so the issue that had come up is like, you know, that we're also asking for this for clearing and grading, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not in site plan review, you can just clear and grade your property. And you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
like you could just clear and grade and then be like, no, I want a site plan review, you know? So like, how do we balance homeowners, you know, basically property owners' rights to like, it is their property, and then this process, I think, is the big question here.
No, I agreed with that being deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense. Oh, sorry, Ben.
There's a piece of legislation out there that's been proposed to cover clearing and removal of trees. And maybe we should turn back to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's the more appropriate place to address it. I don't think that trying to introduce it in a site plan review is appropriate. So
Yeah.
either it needs to be handled in its own legislation and it goes for everybody. But I think to somehow try to add it in here at this point, it doesn't work for a number of reasons. One,
Yeah.
most of these, you know, business zone properties were already developed.
Yeah.
So, you know, clearing and grading is not going to be a significant issue for them because it's mostly done. They're all developed for the most part.
Should be a standalone.
It's a standalone
Yeah.
code section.
Yeah.
So
So it's like a look back, and like I was reading all this
Yeah.
stuff, I was like, how's that gonna work?
it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
But let's talk about putting the clearing legislation back on the table. I mean, it was pretty well baked. It needed some tweaks, but it's pretty far down the road.
I would recommend putting it after wetlands.
Yeah.
So like, let's-
I would too.
so maybe we'll put it back on the table after we finish the wetlands and get that approved.
Okay.
And we also have irrigation also like teed up, so we kind of have a whole list of stuff we're working on. But yeah, we can definitely put that back on the table. There's a comment that the planning board felt like planning for only 2 inches of rainfall in 24 hours may be inadequate. But I think that we need to get sort of an engineer's recommendation on that. It's not very often that we get more than 2 inches of rainfall. It's happened. I mean, we've had some significant weather events in the last few years, so it might be worth considering. But it's also not always possible to fit all of the dry wells on some of these smaller lots.
Yeah.
And a lot of the B-zone lots are very small. So that's.
We should
something to
get some
consider.
input on it though.
Yeah.
As you say.
Well, also, if it's not in the nearshore overlay, it's not required to have like gutters and dry wells and all that. As long as you keep the water on your property, that's the requirement. So, you know, depending on where the property is located, it may or may not even apply.
The other thing I was kind of thinking about is like the fee and fine structure on this, just because like, just watching some of these site plan reviews go through, I think it's worth it for us to think about is the fee appropriate for the amount of work that we're doing? And then the fine structure is like about, just, you know what I mean? All right, I think it's specifically the fine structure should be revisited. But, you know, just for our thinking. I don't know how many violations we get, and I don't know if that's also a byproduct of like what our enforcement capabilities are like, but.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe it's like, especially if we kind of think of like a 3-tiered situation, if you're going for a full site plan review, it's something that's appropriate. And then, you know, minor is maybe something else. And then what we've been calling administrative or whatever is just something again.
Right.
It seems like they should be, they're 3 very different amounts of work, you know, involving. So that would be my other note. It might be worth it too. And I'll take a look at that as well. I'm just kind of thinking about that in the moment. Just like what it is, when was the last time we updated it, and what our
And we can also talk about the
Right.
process
Mhm.
for issuing a violation. So usually you get like a warning notice, like, hey, by the way, you
Yeah.
need to come in and remediate this. And
Yeah.
so like a true violation kind of happens when you get blown off time after time and if you're
Yeah.
given notice after notice. So
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, obviously, I don't think it should be like first offense. $1 billion, but you know, but if we do have somebody who's.
like typically if it gets to this point, they're a repeat offender.
Yeah, and it feels like
an issue, right?
Exactly, and it feels like it should be a little bit more painful.
Right.
Especially, you know, and again, maybe we can review the enforcement kind of guidelines on that.
Because most people, when it's brought to their attention, oh, hey, you need site plan review,
Yeah.
they come and they start the process and.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking for. I mean, but if you're blowing us off,
Right.
you're doing
That's
something
when
shady.
We charge you not less than $1,000.
Yeah, but I wonder if we should like, you know.
And also look at how it relates to some of our other codes and.
Yeah, I mean, and also I think that maybe also look at like neighboring towns and kind of just see what the standard is.
Right. Yeah, he took lights out of here because lighting's covered in its own chapter.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, I think that at least the thing that I would hope to accomplish with this is to like narrow the scope here so that businesses don't get so jammed up. And if they really don't want to change something, they can just kind of move forward. If it's a little change, it should be less of a process. And then my hope is for major stuff, it should go for a site plan review. That makes absolute sense. But it seems like the planning board gets really jammed up with this, and then it jams up our businesses. And so like making sure that, you know, were the planning board to take this back, that it just, that they can really spend time on the stuff that really needs their attention and maybe free up some bandwidth.
1093B,
Uh-huh.
like those kind of, particularly 1 and 2,
Uh-huh.
kind of have that exclusionary language that, like, so if you're converting from one permitted use to another, if it doesn't increase site parking requirements, then you don't need site plan. That's one that's in there. And then, like, if you're not enlarging the building or structure, that's also, you know, so that's, you know, those sections are saying what affirmatively does need site plan. So if you're not doing either of those things,
Right.
then you wouldn't. And the planning board, I guess, crossed out the health department trigger.
And just for, like, I think I would be interested to know, just for context, like what, like other East End towns, is this like pretty standard? Is there a slightly different, like, you know, just for like, just as like to contextualize it, is there any other things that other towns are doing that maybe we should think about that would be included in our administrative?
I mean, I know what East Hampton does. I'll look at Southampton and Southold and
Yeah, it just would be helpful just to kind of, maybe it's appropriate for us, maybe it's not, but it'll also maybe just give us things to like think about.
Right, so I'm gonna recommend that everybody take this home and look at it and make suggestions on changes you'd like to see or ideas to help streamline the process. Thomas, I'm gonna ask you to look into just clarifying the things that could make it so that you don't need site plan review at all, like you can just go about your business, get your building permit.
Yeah.
See if we can make that clear in here. I know it says things that trigger the site plan, but it might be nice to say, like, if you do X, Y, and Z, you don't have to come.
Yeah,
That, I think.
I agree.
Public's edifice, it makes
Yeah.
it easier to digest and understand, okay, if I do these things, I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But if I do these things, I have to do that. So if we can try to make it clean and easily digestible. I think
Yes.
that's the goal.
Yeah, that's
All right.
great.
So everybody take that home, think about it, come back with ideas. And we'll move on to our next topic, fiscal policy.
So Amber and I met with our contract accountant around, like, kind of basically just to ground us back in here, is just to kind of talk about how we can basically spend more time with our financials and make sure that we are fulfilling our duties, doing fiscal oversight, which is part of one of our jobs. So we talked about other reporting that we could be getting either on a monthly basis and then on a quarterly basis. So what we had talked about was basically having maybe like a rolled up report, a financial report that we could talk about on a monthly basis. Right now, we just get the budget versus actuals right now, but something, again, maybe without all the detail, that we could talk about at a meeting or share just some like high level, just so that the public has some transparency as to where we're at. And then the other piece of it is considering just spending a little bit more time with where we are to our budget financially once every quarter. So my suggestion was to ask for some updated reporting, month by month income and expense statements, so we could kind of see how our income is coming in, and just have an opportunity for us as a board to kind of sit down and just make sure that we're really reviewing it. Do we have any questions for department heads? Are there any things, you know, that you see that I don't see, or, you know, that we should be talking about? It just feels like what I see, it just creates so much pressure at budget time as we kind of like all dig into it. And it's huge, right? If you look at those monthly financial packets, they're like big. So, and the other thing is, one of the things I had asked for was like a balance sheet to just understand where we are to our balances. So what we had discussed was doing a quarterly meeting, like basically a quarterly special meeting, right? Where we could kind of work through that, which would be just an extra 4 meetings a year. So let's be real. But I put out to the contract accountant being able to kind of provide us with some additional reporting. So what we were going to try to do is for Q1 to try to get that to us at the end of April, just to see what that looks like. And so then I would kind of put it to this group. Do we want to try to do some initial special meeting at the end of Q1 to kind of give it a try?
I mean, I don't know that it needs to be a special meeting. I think we can do it as part of the work session.
Sweet. Yeah.
Just make it a discussion topic.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we have an additional meeting
Yeah,
for it.
Okay.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Should.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I'm agnostic as to how it works.
At that point, 2025 will have been closed out, the transfers will have been made, so we'll have a clean look at 26, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
Hopefully.
yeah. I mean, and I think
It takes a few months to close out the last year.
yeah, and I think, I think that the important kind of thing to say is like, these are not audited financials, they'll be interim financials. But my hope is that by just taking a beat and being able to look at them ahead of budget season, if there's something that we're seeing that we have questions about, that we can kind of be more on top of it. And I just think that there's just more transparency around the town's money. We know that it's a big topic of concern.
Yep.
I think it's a good thing. So I'm waiting to kind of hear back from her about like when she thinks that she could get to those Q1. I know Q1 can be a little hard because you're still wrapping last year. But my guess would be is to kind of put that on the calendar towards the end of April.
Okay.
And then we could kind of look at the reporting that she's sending us, and then we could figure out like, oh, is this what we need? Do we need it a little tweaked? Is this report helpful? Is that report not helpful? So, maybe by the fall, we could get it dialed in for like, okay, this is exactly what we're going to look at. But my hope is that also at that point that we can get to something that we can share monthly with the public. Like I said, even if it's just like a consolidated rolled up version. So that's something that I've really
Monthly might be aggressive, but
Pardon?
monthly might be aggressive.
Well, here's the thing
Yeah,
is,
but
but
not
there-
that we can't.
we're getting the reporting. So I think that the detailed version is probably too much. I know there's edits, but it's like, oh, like I said, a rolled up, like high level revenue and expenses, I think should
We
be.
always used to say, like, we used to share our balances, right? That's what we would share, like our, this is where we are this month.
recap.
A
Yeah.
recap of kind of,
Yeah, just a consolidated recap, I think would be really helpful for folks to know,
Liz, this sounds fantastic. And regular businesses have to do this, so why shouldn't we?
Yeah. As a business accountant who does this every month, I'm just like, I was like, we should look at this. So,
do we know if it's gonna cost us more to have the extra reports run, or?
it doesn't seem like it. It's just, so I'm kind of talking with her about like what's possible. But most of these reports are stuff that they're doing already or a byproduct of what's happening. The only thing that she wasn't clear on was putting together a balance sheet quarterly, but she thought that that should be possible. So she was just going to get back to me if she thought that that was going to be significantly more work. But she didn't, on our conversation, didn't think that it was. So if that's, there shouldn't be from our conversation with her, it did not look like there was going to be a cost associated with it.
Okay. In my head, I'm trying to figure out how a balance sheet would be helpful, because it's like sort of department, when I look at it, I always go department by department, and you kind of know what their budget is and what they've used. So in my head, that's my balance sheet. Like I know where the spending is, like, so I guess until I see it, I won't know if it's useful. So
Yeah.
in my head, I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like maybe coming from the business world, it's just like the two reports that you almost always look at. You look at like a profit and loss, which is like your revenue and expenses, and balance sheet. You know what I mean? Like that's always where, and so it doesn't mean that the balance sheet has to be something crazy, but we should just know where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is how much we have in the bank. This is how much you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I already see that. Like, I think we kind of get that in the report that we have, but
Yeah.
I understand it's like not the format you're used to looking at. It's like a very different.
And I think it's also putting it together so that it could be something that we could share with the public that's easily digestible, right? And so I guess I would just say, as somebody who does this, like I definitely had trouble kind of sorting through it. So I'm thinking if I'm having a hard time interpreting it, maybe some member of the public might also have a difficult time sorting through it. So how do we make it at least quarterly, just something that's easy to understand? So,
Okay,
yeah,
sounds good.
and again, we can kind of tweak it as, we go through and just be like, this is helpful, this is not helpful, whatever, but I think.
All right. Cool. Let's see.
Holy moly.
Oh, right.
Wackaroo.
All right. So at this point, we've finished our agenda.
I know.
But we're going to adjourn this work session to the meeting on the 12th. We have interviews at 9 a.m., so we're going to adjourn until then. But at that meeting, we will not be discussing the contracts because the police chief isn't available. So we're going to adjourn that to Tuesday's meeting.
Okay.
But we're going to adjourn this work session to March 12th for interviews at 9 a.m. So can I get a, and then can I get a motion to go into executive session for both interviews and contract negotiation?
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
So much.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.